It's good to see you all today after last night's meeting that shall never be spoken of ever again. I'm looking forward to getting back on the same page and working with you all as we listen to our first presentation of the day, which is Student Money Management Services. Thank you so much for your patience. The floor is yours. You can use the arrow keys to go back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
So, hi everyone, my name is Shazak Ashif, and I'm one of the peer educators for Student Money Management Services. And today I'll be telling you guys what we do and why we do it. So first of all, meet the team. Leticia, she's the founding director, an amazing boss. I've worked at the office for about 2 years and it's been a lot of fun. I've learned so much. And then we have our senior peer educators, Colin, Abdusalam, and Ian. And then there's me, Shazak Ashif, and then we have Mercedes, and then our two new SMMS ambassadors, Austin and Leia. So this is our cute little small team, and we were grateful enough to bring everyone together. With new arrivals, the team is large enough to host events. We do tabling at multiple locations. We work really hard every day to host fun events for you guys. We come up with games, prizes, all of that. So let's go to what we do. So here at SMMS, we are committed to improving KU's student final situations by empowering them with skills to better understand and manage their finances. As you guys know, in high school, no one really teaches us about finance. We don't really get classes on that. We're just thrown into the real world, and we're often confused, and often people start managing their own finances going into college. So it can be really hard and stressful considering how hard college can be and with work. So that's what we're here for. Although students are often helped by their parents, guardians, all of that, a lot of students don't have that facility. So that's why we're here. And we also help students and with tools and resources that they need to help them get through their college and to their future lives. So this is our 5 pillars that we focus on. So one is income and financial aid, how to apply for financial aid and how important it is, the benefits you get from it. Checkings and savings, often we start opening our savings account when we start college. Cash management, budgeting, smart spending, we help you guys with that. Credit cards, we know how important those are, how to apply for those. Credit history, we all know how important it is for us to keep our credit scores going into the future. When it comes to buying cars, houses, we need to make sure we have a good credit score. So what we do at our office is we do one-on-one consultations. So you can go to our website, make an appointment, or call us, and we will be glad to come and help you guys one-on-one. Either Leticia, one of our peer educators, me, will help you guys get through whatever financial conflicts you guys are struggling through. So as I mentioned before, as of 2020, only 6 states require students to complete a semester-long personal finance class to graduate high school. So this results in many students going to college with little to none info on financial literacy. So it's really important for us to know about our finances and how to manage, because it can get tough going in. So whether you're an incoming freshman, a transfer student, an international student, we're here to help, and we're here to help you on spending, give you more knowledge on spending, debt, so you guys are set for the future finance. So we host a lot of events. So this is one of the events we did recently was the Monopoly night, where groups of students came, they formed groups, they played Monopoly, and we had food, and they went home with fun prizes. We also have movie night coming up. It's like Valentine's Day based, so it's on February 15. That's going to be a lot of fun. So if you guys want to know what our events are going to be and when are they going to be, because we do 2 to 3 events per month, you should follow us on Instagram to keep track of that, because we post on a daily and we inform you guys what's happening. And then we did fall events. So one of the events that we did that was a lot of fun was Cookies and Cocoa, where we partnered with the International Students of Association, and we wanted more international students to come and participate. We want to educate them more on financial literacy as well, because they're often like confused on what to do coming from a different country. So we had a lot of fun games, fun prizes, and to add a little bit of cultural fun to it, we had henna tattoos as prizes. So that was a lot of fun. We also partnered with the central bank. So we're in this program where if you guys come to 10 of our events or make an appointment with us at our office, you guys will get financial coins. And if you manage to collect 10 of them, you can turn them into a $100 gift card. So I think that's pretty neat. Abiel, over to Leticia.
That's not good. My shoes are too big. Hi. Thank you, everyone. It is definitely an honor to be able to present to you. I'm going to talk to you. My name is Leticia Grayington. I'm the director. And I'm going to talk to you about our budget proposal. Oh, it's down, right? Okay. So first I'll go through the history of SIMS, a no fee increase and reinstating our 50-cent reduction. Our current fee history since 2017, we went from $3 to $3.30 to $2.80, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Fee increase or no fee increase. Right now for fiscal year 24, we don't really need an increase. We were gifted $10,000 by Central Bank. So I know that's a blessing. We will be fine for FY24. The concern is FY25. And I'll talk about FY25 in a minute. We have a position, a coordinator position that needs to be filled. And we've been trying to fill this position for like the last 5 months or so. And I think the salary on it is really low, and that's why no one's biting. So we do have some salary savings from this year that we're going to use to boost that salary up a little bit more so we can get someone in there. I love what I do, but I need help, right? So that's what we plan to do with our salary savings. So for FYI, we'll be fine. The deficit will come in FY25. The projected balance after my 90-day reserve for FY25 will be negative. It'll be negative $19,217. An increase will be warranted at some point in time. FY25 will probably be it. I usually try to really watch my carry forward. So depending on how our funds carry forward, it might not be as high as 19, it could be low. It just depends on how we spend money over the next year or so. So in talking about fiscal year 2024 and 2025, as you can see, we have revenue that comes in, our expenses, and then our fiscal balance is $48,080. We have a carry forward of $122.31. Our balance is $73,951. Now with our 90-day reserve, we take the $40,515 out, and that leaves us with a balance after our 90-day reserve of $33,436. Now, if you look at FY25, same numbers pretty much, slight increase probably, for inflation and such. So our fiscal year balance in FY25 will be $51,739. Our carry forward is $73,951. Our balance is $22,212. Our 90-day reserve, $41,430. And our balance after the 90-day reserve is $19,217. So that's where the deficit will come in. Okay. Once again, we have a partnership with Central Bank, and Central Bank did fund us. And through that funding, they requested that we hire ambassadors. That's why we have 2 ambassadors. And I will say most of the students that are coming through the door are making more than $10 an hour. So I try to pay my students really well because they do the work. So I feel like if they do the work, they should be paid accordingly. And normally what I do, the longer they stay in the office, every year, they usually get a raise. So by the time they get to their senior year, they're looking pretty good. But I also, give raises according to, or when I hire folks, the experience they bring to the office. Because, bless you, a graduate student and an incoming freshman are 2 different beasts, right? So it just depends as far as, what experience they can bring and also their time as well. Our office serves students with financial challenges, and helping students understand the value of their money is really, really important. I could stand here and tell you all the nightmares, but all of our office is not always about nightmares, but usually, when people come to our office, it's financial and they need help, or either they want budgeting or they want to get married. We've done like 7 weddings. So, there's some positivity. I don't like people to think that student money management services is just about, gee, I need money, or, the negative side, because we do a lot of positive things too. We have a very diverse demographic. So students are having babies, buying houses, financing cars. So it's not just tuition, right? It's way broader than that. So we take time to sit down with students to work through their financial issues, whatever they may be. We are motivated to expand and improve our services for the student body. Right now, most of our presentations are in big form classrooms. We have invites where we come in and we talk to, the class as far as money and things of that nature. But we also do a lot of interactive gaming where students can come and have fun, but also learn financial principles that will help them not just now, but later on into the future. There's nothing more rewarding for us than students taking a sigh of relief. It's just so nice when a student comes in and they're like totally stressed out. And we sit down with them for about 40 minutes to an hour, and we bring that level down for them, and they leave with that sigh, like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, for everything we do, that thank you means a lot to us from students. And knowing that they have a plan, and helping them to become financially secure as they matriculate through the University of Kansas. But we want them to leave with the life skills. See, because if you leave here and you don't understand how to manage your money, then you'll end up failing life. You may pass academics, but you'll fail life. And we don't want you to fail life. We want you to leave here. We want you to have the tools and the skills to do whatever it is you need to do financially, and just understand the basics, because as young folks, the basics are what's important to you. Because if you find out information at the age of 40 that you should have known at the age of 20, you're going to be mad. You'll be a little upset. So we really, rally upon, educating at that level. So on that note, I don't think, I would say a 50 cents increase would be nice, but I think on the back end, we've been really honored by Central Bank. So I don't think that we need an increase for this year, as you can see from our numbers. I think the increase, and even if you go back and look at my presentation from last year, it still notes fiscal year 25 will be the year we'll have to get a raise in order to maintain what we do for students. So I don't know, I think that's kind of good news, but that's pretty much what we have. Last year, I think in my narrative, we served about 6,000 students, which was big, and we really would love to raise that number. And in order to raise that number, we just need a few more, folks helping us out and working with us so we can reach more. Because if we can reach them, we can teach them, right? So what questions do you have for me?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just a reminder for the few members of the public in here that have not been here before. He's my friend, I can say that. Way we'll do questions is members of the committee will be prioritized, and then we'll go based on Robert's rules following that. Okay. So what questions do we have for us? Ollie, go ahead.
I have a question, but it's more for Casey.
Sure.
So if we did the 14-cent increase, what's like the multiplier we would need? Like how much would they need in FY25 to get back to out the rate?
So that's really going to depend on the expenses for next fiscal year. It will also depend on if they can fill the full-time position, and when that position is filled and at what rate. So that will all depend on that. I would say if they received a 14-cent reduction this fiscal year, we would need to probably add that back in next fiscal year with a little bit more.
So I think like 30 cents. Okay. Thank you.
I'll go if that's okay.
Yes.
How long has your coordinator position been vacant, and can you speak to how mission critical this role is, the way you do it?
It has been vacant for probably almost a year. And that's a part of the vacancy, I think, has to do with people having that financial background. And what was your other question?
How essential, or is there been a noticeable decline in what you've been able to do as a result of this position not being filled?
Not a decline, but a decline on me, because everything has to be done by me. So I've been doing this for 13 years. So I've always said this is not a sustainable model. And you need to have that backup. You need to have that coordinator, someone else that knows the functionality of the office. Otherwise, it'll just, if something happens to me, then, what are we doing? So that coordinator position is very important. It's important as far as working with students. I can't right now, I'm doing everything and working with the students too. And I work with the students that walk through my office. So I take the walk-ins, and, we have peer educators that can take students as well. To answer your question, though, that position is critical. It's critical to this office. In the beginning, when we first started out, grant funded, right? So we really didn't have any money then. Everything was like very thin. So in order for us to survive, I had to keep it that way. So eventually we got to the point where, I can't do everything. So, you guys eventually funded us for the position. Now, we had the position out there, and round one, we didn't get too many responses. Then I sent it back to HR to have it retooled. And in retooling the position, they put financial in front of it. And we still didn't get any bites then. So at that point, I think it's the salary, and we bumped the salary up to, I think it was like 40,000, and we still didn't get a bite. So I'm going to send it back and retool it again. I personally, as an HR person, I don't think it's retooling. I think it's the salary. Because anytime you deal with people that have financial credentials and things like that, that's where the money comes in. Yes.
Do you take feedback on your services?
I'm sorry?
Do you take a feedback on your services?
Do we take feedback? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Yes, we do. We do. The feedback for our office is really good. I apologize because we usually, put some inserts in there. But our feedback is really good. The students feel like, the things that we do for them are very empowering. I've had students say, man, this is just nice to be able to know where my money is. We will take walk-ins. We support students all the way around. And if a student cannot make it, because sometimes we continue to battle with classes and students, they can make an appointment after 5, whatever works for them. And we'll accommodate them. So as far as what students learn, it's very impactful in their lives. You're welcome.
How many one-on-one conferences do you have for fiscal year 22?
Oh, I would probably say for fiscal 22, I think we were maybe in 200s. It's up there. I can go back and look that up if you'd like me to. But the one-on-ones, I'd probably say on an average, it just depends on what time of the year it is. Because in the beginning of the year, we have students that are trying to figure out, tuition and how to pay for it and things like that. So our numbers are really high. Towards when it's time to pay, students find out they have a balance, then it's high again. So, I would probably say in those pending months, we see anywhere from 15 to 20 students a month, if not more than that.
So pre-pandemic was it higher?
I will say yes. Everything pre-pandemic was higher. We've had to be really creative in our form simply because we can have events in the union and cross our fingers and hope students show up to the events. But I feel like, when you see something isn't working, you do your best to fix it. So my solution to that problem is if the students won't come to us, let's go to the students. So all of our events and things that are going on for the next 3 or 4 months are all in the residence halls and scholar halls and places like that. So we're going to have a ritual where we will have an event on the Hill, and we'll have that constant place to be. And we're doing it like every Wednesday night. So every Wednesday night in the month, something will be going on the Hill with Sims. And we're going to try to rotate around to the different residence halls to include everyone. And then when we have a central one, we'll go to Mrs. E's, and then we can catch everyone while they're in and out.
Also, the question real quick, and as far as can you speak to maybe the sustainability of your partnership with Central Bank? Is that an ongoing relationship? Was this a one-time thing? Is that something you can develop in future years?
Oh, I think it's something we can develop. The $10,000, I don't know if that probably may be a one-time thing, unless, or it may be something they decide to do on an annual basis. I mean, I don't know yet. But as far as our partnership, I think it's a great partnership. Central Bank has done a great job of really coming on campus and working with students, working with all of us, kind of bringing us together in that kind of way. So I think our partnership will go for a long time. If you've ever met Will Carter, he's just really a nice guy, and he loves students and what we do. So he's always excited to say, what event can we come up with next? So yeah, I think the partnership is positive, and I think it will last. Now the 10,000, that's a question I can't ask, because now that you mentioned that, I probably should, ask them. But I want to wait till the money hits the bank account first, and then once we have it, then we can, But outside of that, I think it'd be. But I can honestly tell you, if we really needed something from Central Bank, all we have to do is ask them, and they would support in that manner as much as they could.
Aside from the coordinator position, where's the bulk of your carry forward coming from?
Being carried forward. I mean, I don't know any other way to answer that.
Carried forward from year after year.
It's from
Vacant positions, because that vacant position has been vacant over the last several years, filled, vacant, filled. They continue to carry forward year after year.
So yeah, it comes from our past, and we've had a couple of folks in those positions. So it's been kind of, they're here and then they're gone. They're here and then they're gone. But when you have a position that pays not really well, but well enough for them to get on campus, then it becomes a platform position. And what that means is they're on campus long enough, probably 1 year, and they're gone. And then we have to fill that position again. So I really want to fill that position with someone that is passionate about it and really loves it, because those are the people that'll stay. See, because it wasn't money that brought me here. Like I said, we were on a grant when I was hired. So, it was the passion that brought me here. So I know if you speak with someone else that's as passionate as I am about it, they love what they do. And, when they have the opportunity to help students and, work in that money realm, that's what they do. That's what they love. But if it's someone that just takes up that position as a job and they're really not in tune to it, I don't think they stay long. I'll just be honest, because it's not an easy job. You're talking about finances. It's not always easy, but we've managed to do very well in that arena.
Any other questions, Representative? I have one more, and then we'll let you out of here.
No worries.
So what do you think what are the advantages that SIMS offers in terms of financial literacy resources compared to other things that might be available online for students? Right. So, if you find an investigative article, can you speak to the advantages that your service provides relative to everything that's out there publicly?
For everything that's out there right now, I would probably say we could pretty much talk about anything. And that's only because of my positioning, and I'm that's investments and everything. So I think from that perspective, I think we offer a lot, and you'd have to understand finances a little bit more to understand what I'm saying, because in the financial world, you cannot talk about investments unless you're licensed or a teacher. It's only like 3 or 4 of them, a lawyer, that's it. If anybody else is speaking on it and you're not licensed, you're breaking the law. So, I am licensed, so I can have those conversations free willing and no problems whatsoever. So those are students that can come and ask questions and get answers and not have to worry about whether it's right or wrong, if that makes any sense. So I think to have someone licensed like that is phenomenal. I'm a mortgage license, all of that. So when I have students that come in and they don't understand their mortgage, or they're getting into a mortgage, or they're getting ready to buy a house and I don't understand what these 4 boxes are, I can break that down to them. So I think we bring a lot of resources when it comes to the financial world. And if we don't have the answer, we definitely find it. But I haven't found a question yet that I couldn't answer from a student. Mhm.
Anything else? Wonderful. Well, let's have a round of applause for our presenters.
Appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak.
Of course.
All right.
Thanks for coming in. Madison, could I have the webcam, por favor? As far as timeline of decisions go, the TC entries, we will have a proposal hopefully done by Friday night, which will then go to Finance Council on Wednesday, and if all goes according to plan, we'll have a final answer for you the Wednesday afterwards. So we will be in touch.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for me doing it, so. No, he was gonna do it today. No, I don't want to be that. Oh, that's a big good. Yeah. On you. Secrets and I'm not. We don't Hello. Oh, wow.
Sarah, how's it going?
Good. Are we using your computer or do I set up my computer and do the PowerPoint?
Let's just use mine.
Oh, you don't
Is that everything on the SharePoint? No.
Well, it's not your SharePoint.
We can do. Is it in my shirt?
I can put it.
I know.
I put it in.
Yeah, there's too many chairs.
You can find.
Oh, sorry.
The there is. I just put it in there.
I like them.
Which should I put it in the student senate that day?
Is anyone?
Did everybody have trouble? In current peer review documents.
Got it.
In 24, and then in this article.
Yeah.
Drop it. And then it will be there. And then we have it.
It's gonna be interesting.
One.
That's the one who's always just say.
Like the E, I don't think it's great, right?
I agree.
Which is unfortunate. And so I, but it's like they try to do their best. They make it so they do the whole-
I think it's up to better. Well, in the meantime,
Let me know when it's in case.
it's uploading, it's like actively uploading for some reason. I've
Sometimes
got like a
takes a second.
spinning wheel of death right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they always run this one, or wait, no, the 1199 one. It's not bad. Yeah. It's our task people, which I think it's. Taste it. Where's their stuff? Somebody said locations, or is it the general view? It's like,
Well, they're gonna say.
It's almost there. It's almost there.
This.
In the meantime, hello, everybody. Who wants a silk pen? You know you do. You really do. I really love one.
I don't even use it. I wrote my iPad.
Take it for a friend. Okay, so I'm gonna pass down this little bag. Everybody, there's a red or blue. Please help yourself. Take your pen and pass it along. Don't know who to call. Also, there you go. There you go. Also got a bunch of these to pass out too. Please take one of these. There you go. I will explain shortly. You can pass. Yay, found it, great.
Can go back and forth with the arrow keys, I think. Yeah.
Heard there were, arrow key issues, everything's.
I
we good
think
to
that's
go?
been sorted, yes. I
Okay.
have restarted my laptop and it seemed to resolve some of the issues. So.
Brilliant. Okay, I've also got business card doing a meeting zone, probably not. You'll know where to find all my info.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks again for coming in today. We are set to hear from one of Student Senate's neighbors, quite literally across the street in the Silk office. Please welcome Sarah Bowman, the one and only.
Thank you, Camden. So hi, everybody. I know some of you, not all of you. But I'm Sarah Bowman. I'm the director of the Student Involvement and Leadership Center. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the Silk office. I'll give you a little overview in case there are folks here who aren't super familiar with the services that the Silk office provides. And then very specifically tell you what the required campus fee does to support the Silk office. Here we go. All right. So give you a little overview of the staff structure of the Silk office. We have the director be myself. We have assistant director, 2 coordinators, a student engagement coordinator, and your wonderful student senate coordinator, Madison, sitting right over there. We have a communications specialist and 7 Silk peer outreach team members that we lovingly call spots. And our focus within the Silk office is student organizations primarily, with also leadership programming and non-traditional student support services. Okay. All right, so what does the Silk office do? Well, I'd like to hope that most of you have heard of Rock Chalk Central. Who here has heard of Rock Chalk Central? Good answers, good answers. If you have not, please type in rockchalkcentral.ku.edu and become familiar. It is one of the, I think, most important things that Student Senate funds. It is the home of all the student organizations on campus, of which there are just shy of 500. So all student organizations have to register annually with the Silk office to become an official student organization. And then they each get a page on Rock Chalk Central, which I don't think this analogy holds anymore, but I used to say is like the Facebook of student organizations on campus, but I should probably come up with a new one. Anyway, but it is a home to a web page for each student organization that they can use to provide information, and they can use to message their members, and anybody can join and be part of their roster within the organization on that page. So there's a lot of fun things that can be done on Rock Chalk Central. If this in any way sparks your interest, let me know. And we have those amazing spots I mentioned who would be happy to walk you through every detail that Rock Chalk Central has to offer. But the other things that Rock Chalk Central does, it's also where the Student Senate elections happen. And so that will be right now where we are accepting candidacy forms for anybody who's running for a Senate seat for president, vice president. You have to go to that Rock Chalk Central homepage and click and fill out that candidacy form. And it's also where we send the way that we send out our Rock Chalk Central newsletter. Has anyone received the Rock Chalk Central newsletter? Yeah, awesome. So we send that out weekly during the school year, and it consists of all sorts of student organization events and happenings on campus. Any student organization can submit to the newsletter if they would like to advertise their event and have that broadcast more broadly to the student population. We have a way for them to submit their event for being in the newsletter, but every single event that is submitted to Rock Chalk Central gets put in the newsletter, whether it gets a special blurb because they asked for it, but if they didn't, we still include it. There's a list of all events happening in the next week that are always at the end of every newsletter. So we really like to try and get the word out about things that are happening. Another part of that is the Cork app. Is anybody familiar with the Cork app? CORQ. If you are not, I highly encourage you to go to your app store on your phone and download it right now. It is free. It comes with the Rock Chalk Central. It's basically Rock Chalk Central on the go. It is all the student organizations and all the events that are happening with the student organizations on campus on your phone, in your pocket. You can RSVP to events. You can see literally the map location of where things are happening on campus right in your pocket. Okay. And Student Senate makes that happen. All right, another thing the Silk office does is we also do student organization involvement fairs. And so who went to Union Fest like during Hawk Week this year? Anybody? No? All right, I was like, yeah, and I do understand that it's mostly geared toward incoming students, but everybody's also always so welcome. So we do at least 2 big involvement fairs a year. We just finished Winter Fest that happened in January, where we invite as many student organizations that would like to participate to table, and then we invite the students to come, and it is a really good time. We had thousands of students attend Union Fest this past August. I was like, yeah, what month was it? And so it's an opportunity for all the student organizations to be able to get in front of new and incoming students, or students who are still just looking to get involved and meet new people in a different way. So opportunities for the student organizations to get the word out. And when student organizations are maybe looking to kind of up their game or figure out how to make the next thing happen, that's where our Silk workshop menu comes in. Those spots that I mentioned before are specially trained in the ability to provide all of these workshops to student organization leaders and advisors. So if a student organization leader is going through election transitions for the first time and is like, I don't know how to transition my org to a new set of leadership. Well, all they got to do is reach out to the Silk office. We are eager and waiting to receive them and help guide them through their transition process. All sorts of things. We will help them leverage social media for outreach and recruitment. We will help them learn how to use these apps that I mentioned, the Cork app or event check-in app, and if they want to track attendance at their events. Elections, event planning, helping them rewrite a constitution or figure out financial planning. That is definitely a big one and a very popular item. So I mentioned Union Fest. We try to get a lot of feedback about how the event went, how can we improve, how can we help the student organizations feel like they reached more students, how can we help the new and incoming students feel like they connected with other students on campus, feel a sense of Jayhawk pride, feel a sense of belonging. That's really, really important and the cornerstone of the Silk office. We also provide an annual student organization training day where we invite any and all student organization leaders and advisors to come and do kind of a little overview, as much as you can fit into a couple of hours, of all of those workshop items I mentioned. For example, we'll touch on a plethora of different things to give student organizations an overview of information they might need in order to just get started planning events and recruitment and how to be a student organization on campus. And if they ever want to know more, we are always happy to meet with them to go over more details. We also provided this in a hybrid fashion this year, and we'll continue to do so. We had, I think, equal parts. We had just as many people in person as we had online, and managed to do it really, really well. And I think that I wasn't sure how it would go, but we also did a lovely giveaway at the end of the event, and even folks who attended online were eligible for the giveaway, and it actually worked out pretty well. So we'll be continuing to do that. I think it's an important accessibility issue, so we want to make sure that we could reach as many students as possible. Okay. And that also leads into our non-traditional student population that we always like to have at the forefront of our mind, thinking about who are we reaching? Who are we not reaching? How can we reach more students? How can we get more students involved and engaged on campus? And so keeping the student population that is not always the one who gets all the attention at the forefront of our mind. We provide non-traditional student week. So it's actually a national thing. There is a national non-traditional student week. There's actually a national non-traditional student organization. And it is the first week in November. First full week. It's usually overlaps or right around Veterans Day. And so we've for many years now been hosting a week of events in honor of different non-traditional student populations and trying to help them feel connected, part of the community, seen and heard. We love to get their feedback about how we can do better to serve them. And then in the spring, it's going to be happening here in March. We'll open up our non-traditional student scholarships. So we do oversee some scholarship money through endowment and through the amazing generosity of Student Senate via the Educational Opportunity Fund. We are able to give back directly to the non-traditional students and really love to make sure that everybody knows about this amazing opportunity to apply for these scholarships. Okay, and so as I mentioned, our spots. This is a relatively new initiative, but it's our cornerstone leadership program currently. Our Silk Peer Outreach team members are specially trained to provide support, guidance, and resources to student organizations, the leaders, the advisors, and they also can do not only the menu that I've identified, but we can prep things by request. Happy to take requests, do the research to be able to provide guidance and advice. Our spots also do a lot of just general involvement meetings. So that is any student who is not sure where to start, not sure how to figure out what they might be interested in or want to get involved with on campus. They are welcome to schedule a meeting with one of our spots. We'll kind of talk with them about their general interests and show them Rock Chalk Central and how they can search for things they might be interested in based off of category, or if it's they want to look for something more academic or they want to look for something more social, can kind of help them think through those various options. Now, that's part of why I had you all take a card. Okay, so those lovely little cards right there. Those are our spot meeting cards. So if you don't need it, I bet you know someone else who does. So that card, if you scan that QR code, it'll take you directly to the Calendly where you can book a meeting with one of our spots to talk about getting involved on campus, or very specifically to request a workshop or a presentation, or even to invite us spots to come table at an event or at a particular location on campus. And if somebody books a meeting with our spots and then not only books it, but does attend it, we do have that requirement. If they do come to the meeting, then they can also get one of our awesome free bucket hats. So though I will be honest, those were a hotter commodity when the weather was warmer, but they'll come back around. They'll come back around. Regardless, though, our spots are a great way for students who are feeling disconnected or are just not really sure how to engage with others on campus. It can really walk them through the steps of ways to explore that. So if you don't need it, because you're all clearly connected here, but I bet you know somebody who does. So please pass that card along to someone else. All right, so I have a little video, but I don't know if we have time, so I'll come back to that. All right, so I want to make sure I tell you what Rock Chalk Central pays for. What the required campus fee pays for. Always have Rock Chalk Central on the brain because that's one of the primary things. So the required campus fee does pay for the Rock Chalk Central platform, which comes with the Cork app. We do utilize the fee to pay for the cost of the event check-in app, and it also the fee that comes to Silk does also go toward 3 staff members: our assistant director, our student engagement coordinator, and our student senate coordinator. And also if we do have additional funds left over, they do go toward student organization programming support. So that'd be those workshops, student training day, our involvement fairs, those kind of things. Okay. All right, so I was like, okay, all right. So I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions. The video is about 3 minutes, so I don't know if we want to. It's a cute video. I did show it to the fee committee last year. Be happy to show it to you again. It is about getting involved on campus, but as heard from various student organization leaders. So if you're interested, we can play it, but if you've got a lot of questions, I want to make sure that I don't go over my time.
Let's go with questions first.
All righty.
What do we have? Let's play the video. Give some time. Fester.
No immediate questions. We're not chomping at the bit. Okay. So, oh yeah.
Probably does. Fast.
My question, I'm not being rude, my legs fucked up. But my question is in regards to proposed scenario B, the 31% decrease, with the 5% decrease. It looks to me like you would still be okay if you got that decrease.
Initially, yes.
Can you explain the impact that could have over time for us, because sometimes like you look at the figures and it's like, oh, that looks okay, but there could actually be a wide impact on campus that we might not know about. So
Yeah.
just one thing you could explain.
Sure, fair question. So I think I may have addressed it a little bit in the question packet. But basically the overview gist is, so, it would depend on if it was like 5 or 10%, but if we're talking like 5% decrease, the silk office, yes, would indeed be fine for at least a couple of years. Now, there is the fact that we do have like 3 staff salaries on this, right? And if we pretend that those things never change and that those people, we never are able to afford to give them, cost of living increase or wages increase, like, let's put that aside. There is another increase that always happens, there's nothing we can do about, and that is the 4% annual increase to the cost of the software that runs Rock Chalk Central.
Okay.
Anytime I'd ever asked those people, they say this is like, industry standard. I was like, I don't know. But that is just a thing that is true. Like I've seen it started at one point and it has since Student Senate purchased it back in 2013, it has increased in cost by 4% annually every year. And that will never, as far as I know, stop. So even if we kept everything static, there are costs that will always increase. So that will inevitably mean Silk will come back for a fee increase eventually. Now, I can't tell you specifically when that is, but it would happen probably like just a few years down the line.
Thank
Do you take feedback on your services?
Do I take feedback? Yes, I love feedback. Do you have some feedback?
I mean, like, no, like.
Yes. It was like, yes, feedback, yes, please. After every single spot meeting, anybody who meets with a spot, and so we have, like, I could actually tell you, I think it's a 9.5. I was like, my student engagement coordinator, I was like, why was it 1 out of 10? Why not just 1 to 5? Whatever. He had a reason. They get an average 9.5 rating. We asked every single student or advisor who meets with our spots, we asked them to fill out a survey afterward about how they felt like the services were provided. Did they feel like they got that their needs were met? Was there anything that was missing? How did they feel about their engagement with their spot? So we have that data. Also, after every event, we try to send out a survey. Now, the ones that we offer free fun swag are usually the ones that people respond to. So it's a mixed bag, but we do always ask for feedback after every single event. Even after the Winterfest event that I mentioned that we had the Winter Involvement Fair in January, we sent out a survey asking for feedback from that and did get responses for that. And so we do have feedback, and I do take it very seriously. That's how we can help our programs evolve. That's part of actually how we determined that creating the SPOT program was a need and a necessity based off of previous survey feedback.
How many monthly active users do you have on Quark at the moment?
So, I would love to know. The thing is, the vendor said, we can't give you that data. So we don't actually have any, because it's run by the vendor. So Rock Chalk Central is run off of a platform that's called Engage, which is owned by a company called Anthology. If you want to know all about these like CRM and like vendor software people, like there's a whole world. And the Quark app that they have, I have asked many times, I was like, you run this app, you should be able to give me this data. Like I've asked for, like, yeah, can I have user data? Can you tell me how many folks have downloaded this? Can you tell me how many, they will give me nothing. So if you'd like to get in my corner and call them until they like hire someone to make that happen, I would love that.
Okay, like what's the total cost for Quark?
So Quark is just part and parcel of Rock Chalk Central. Rock Chalk Central itself, this past the current year that we're in, so it's an annual contract. So it started back in July and goes through June, to the tune of $27,343. I tried to memorize that. I'm pretty close.
So that's this year's, and then, so we can anticipate next year's will be 4% more. Now. We have a special price. So if you want to know a little history about that, I'm happy to tell you all about it if you want to. But KU was one of the first schools to sign on to this particular piece of software back in 2013. And we got a special, you're one of the first schools price. So the package that we have is not what they sell now. And that actually is part of what has boxed us in a little bit. It's not necessarily the best. You may, lots of folks have feelings and thoughts about Rock Chalk Central and the Core Gap. However, if we were going to change vendors and get something else, we're talking about more than double the cost. So we have like this special price that is awesome, but has, like I said, kind of put us in this position where it's really hard to contemplate even considering something else.
Yeah, so my brain blanked out when you said the price, if you say the price.
Cool, it's cool, like you can like, even stick, if you want to know a lot of, money figures and stuff, we can hang out after, and I can give you a whole spreadsheet and stuff if you want to.
Let's see, it's been a lot, but what's the exact price for the software again?
27,
Okay.
343, that's this year's, anticipate a 4% increase for the next year.
Alright.
I have no questions, but I have a lot of constructive feedback that I can provide you after this.
Cool. All right.
Calvin, the nerds and Nick would build it for them.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you're gonna build us I was like, oh, you want to build one? Sweet. Okay, anybody?
Okay, well, Sarah, thank you so much. In the nick of time, we can't play the video. We are on break.
Does anybody want to see the cute little video? Is the sound work,
Yes, it does.
we think? Okay.
The switch, the white panel,
Specifically.
volume knob to the right.
Really great experience because we really have built a sense of community and family.
My favorite part of being involved at KU is from obviously Jayhawk Motorsports and just all the friends that I met through this organization.
Seeing how the club has impacted their lives and how they've gained friendships and gained friends that they wouldn't have ever met without the car club.
Especially despite quarantine and coronavirus regulations, it's been a great outlet and just having that community.
With Betty Ultimate, I love being able to meet new people and also be able to travel the country with all of my friends.
I've seen an opportunity to really be of service in a different way.
I wanted to get a part of homecoming to shake things up, to make it different.
There's something for everybody, and that's not the case at every single school, so.
Hi, my name is Jen, and I'm a sophomore at KU studying chemical engineering.
I'm Claire Cook, and I'm an incoming junior and astronomy major here at KU.
Hi, my name is Andrew Rose. I'm a sophomore at the University of Kansas studying international business, French, and finance.
My name is Emily Brenner. I'm a freshman at the University of Kansas, and I'm currently studying business administration.
Hello, my name is Amanda Levin.
I'm Marin Lilly and I'm the senior at KU.
My name is Susie Glenn, and I'm a senior.
Get out here and progress. I know that it'll be like having it's a great way to see what's happening on campus and see where all you get involved.
I would say don't put it off, definitely jump right in.
Just kind of feel out a bunch of different organizations. You don't have to be committed to something right away.
This is a really cool experience just to get to know as many people as you want, whoever you want.
All of these organizations really want to have you and want to have you participate.
Get started early because when you want 4 years to work your way up through an organization.
Every student is always wanting to rave about organizations that are in.
Try to step out of your comfort zone and always be willing to try new things.
When you find those communities that you really click with, you can find some of the best friends you'll ever make in your whole life. You'll find some of those people that really want to see you thrive and succeed.
It's a great way to get involved and meet people, especially the freshmen.
Now, clearly, we need to do a post-mask mandate update to this. But gives you kind of a general lovely little gist there. So it was certainly, it was created by a really awesome student that we hired to put that together for us. And we asked for all sorts of feedback from students. They videoed themselves and sent it in. And those are all like, they've been real student leaders on campus who were dedicated to sharing that information with incoming students. So hopefully we'll do an update in this next coming year. But any other additional last questions?
Like that's all we have.
All right.
Sarah, thank you so much. Including your adorable video. Never fails to make me smile. We will be in,
Students, they saw themselves.
we will be in touch. I'm sure you are aware of the torturous process that this is. Okay,
Did everybody?
we're gonna reconvene at 4:15. Go eat, get food, use the restroom, stand up, stretch your legs. We've got two more after this, transit and UDK, both of which should be a ton of fun. So.
Yeah. Like, did you want to set outside for him or?
And
I think that's.
what food do you want to get tomorrow? What food do you want to get? How many do you? I like fish.
2 cheese, 2 pepperoni, 1 vegetarian.
You want to, you want to three?
Let's do like 4.
Oh, both of them are flat, well, they didn't have-
Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh,
Connect my computer if I can.
I'll send it to you.
Is your presentation in the SharePoint?
No.
If it's possible, you can put it there. Unfortunately, we do have to run everything through my laptop.
Okay.
But if you just put it in the SharePoint, I can.
Did you, I thought you would be enough, and like, I figured that there are people, since I don't know, people come. Tomorrow, I can find out, there's a mom in there too. Give you the right. 3 of these. So I have to make sure I didn't mess up. Well, I have 3 of them. What happened to the third one? It's really weird. Oh, wow. No, I just meant, where did my third one leave?
Oh. Someone grabbed it on the way, like, ooh, this is good. Some light reading.
My.
What's it like?
They're all one. We'll see. That's just to do, and especially if I have to stick my PowerPoint in the SharePoint. Yes, so we won't be back.
You're gonna present 0.
They're gonna have plans on
Well, oh, no, it's okay, yeah, I just. I don't know, it's about it. But every time I was like,
that makes sense. Don't cover. Oh, man, you know.
I can share, like, I have my friends.
I don't know, I mean, it's, yeah, that feels like things. Just need to find them. Plug it in, it was, makes me,
How you doing?
Or- That's what it is. Sort of. I told them to come visit.
If you had questions on like that.
Yeah.
What work and.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is. Content, not stop recording.
You guys are getting.
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
Just don't know how easy it'll be for it to suck it all up there and sing it.
Yeah.
I will. Not in, you know, last one, but I don't know. We have a lot of like rotate. But one can say next time.
But if you're doing this.
Yeah, $200,000, we got 10 to 45, and 7 is the longest. Well, if we moved on, maybe this is what to do. Evenings are really.
Yeah, I see. So funny story.
Yeah, I just love.
It's just. If I was every guidance for that. So they have.
And it's good. Yeah, I just don't like class and all like Paul.
Copy of this.
I need to get them. What's the invitation first? Something here. I was on there. Clients here. Well, we're not gonna be overflowing. The students are all. I think they're gonna get one step.
Because I had made it.
Which one?
He said 15.
It is, I want to funny, and then.
Congratulations. Everything is like, I already get a job in finance.
Just realized 7 months ago. That's why. This is for your role and what? Just always wanted to maybe. Because that's just really that's two scenarios. Okay. Yeah. Yes. It's nice. This mine is like all making strikes.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have a thing for the
I'm used to
knowing ahead of time what you plan would be nice.
Okay.
Because I had it all prepped and ready to just plug in and go. Switching gears is hard for us. Because I was in a hurry, so I was trying to. It might also take it a minute to sync because it's a really big file, which is the other reason I'm concerned about it. It's almost 18 megabytes. It's not the biggest PowerPoint I've ever made.
It's still plenty of time anyway, so we'll start till 4:15.
Oh, yes, I discussed it. Teenage thing changes. That all in here.
It's a cool price, what makes my little price not have.
You guys have gone. Good morning, man. How you doing? Hey, you doing? We were told you this last year. You remember this young man, Mr. Blake Shear? Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I worked for him, do something.
He's a good dude.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy thing that happened today.
Really?
Yeah. But it was, I mean, all that, track one more tracker. Go ahead and send it.
I guess it.
Yeah, okay.
Now.
Been talking a long time, but, that's been a long word, like, long time.
I'm sure you're.
Well, these used to be your old stomping grounds, so.
Sure that it doesn't. It's tired. So I just find.
So your intern, are you looking for now? But it's not something.
I did, it's nothing.
I used to be in law school.
It's always been. Do I go ahead and?
Right.
Yeah, it's right here.
What's your name? That's good.
They get it at least, and depends on when all day.
Right. Well, I'm glad. That was the Senate. Has a graduate students. I do. Oh.
Right up here. I mean, no, okay.
It's super good. There's. I was waiting for the. Yeah. Or it's. Make sure. What's actually when it's. Yeah. Let's bring out to. I'm about to running down the list. Yeah, that's been It's thinking really hard, and I'd like to see if it's at least recognizing it, yeah.
George, we can just throw it up on.
Page, so that's-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
In all of these.
Yeah, just been for sure.
You know, like, it's not in there yet.
Yeah, yeah. You'll get your full time, it's just short based on technical.
No, we'll get it done. It just. This is where they, if I'd known in advance, I could have put it up there when we. Yeah, they're gonna-
It's in there.
that's what we're waiting for because. they're-
You got flooring motion?
It's probably still. It's been pretty slow.
Well, if it's not.
USB-C to USB.
Yeah, I just need another one of these. Which one did flashback?
USB-C, yeah. It's the one that's.
You have your flash drive?
It's, I had it on OneDrive, it's called System, which is why.
Everyone.
And so I put it up in the SharePoint folder and through OneDrive, which is.
Those are too big to email.
Just 18 minutes.
All right, let's try that.
Yeah. And that's what I'm in with, Chris. That's where I was at. Maybe it's like ask you were asking the people. Okay. It moved it. That's part of it. Well, you're not going to say there. Not that. I just, when I moved it, all of a sudden you see it. And then if I just share it to you, will that work?
Yeah.
Is that not when you said line loader?
Camden.baxter@ku.edu. So you know address.
Oh, no, it's not. Gonna
What's it
work.
called?
Do that.
Yes.
Yeah, it has to be. I didn't realize that. Anywhere. Is your middle initial Z?
Yes, it is. No. What?
If your mom didn't make up your middle name, you're good. My mom made up my first name and my middle name, so. Hey, look at that.
So the way this works is, just use the arrow keys to go back and
Yep.
forth. Cool. All right, everybody, thank you for your patience as we worked out some technical difficulties, something that we're no stranger to this week. Hey, part of life, I suppose. Please welcome to the floor our second largest fee funded entity and the last of the big three trio of fees that we will hear from this week, student transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Camden. Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Stifler. I'm a student transportation coordinator here at the University of Kansas. And I work for Margaret and Quiz and act as a liaison between KU Student Senate, KU Transportation, and KU Student Body.
Hello, I'm Margaretta DeFries. I'm the transit program coordinator and full-time staff supporting all the transit programs here at KU.
Everybody, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Quisenberry. Everybody calls me Quiz, and I'm with KU Transportation Services. We have a fourth who may be coming in. That's Pally Long. Pally is the Associate Vice Provost for Operations. So if we see somebody come walking in, that will be who that is. Thanks for hearing our fee today.
So we thought we'd start with a brief overview of the organizational structure for transit, which is a little more complicated than we present to the bus riding public.
Transportation Services is part of operations, which reports to the Provost's office. We oversee all of the parking operations on campus and have been responsible for KU on Wheels and Safe Ride since 2007. Our funding for transit comes primarily through the student fees set by this committee and Student Senate, with about 10% contributed from parking funds. The Transit Commission is our student board, which is appointed by the provost based on names provided from various Senate presidents. There are 10 voting members, 7 students, 1 faculty, and 2 staff. The transit services are operated by an outside service provider, which is currently First Transit. We are in the last year of our 5-year contract with them. This contract is something we do together with Lawrence Transit for more, in order to achieve operational and cost efficiencies, which we will talk about more later in the presentation.
We're going to start off defining some terms that could be considered transit jargon, give some context for the information that we're sharing with you this afternoon. Here's some clarity regarding some route terms. Circulator routes are fixed campus routes that run solely on campus to get students where they need to go. And off-campus routes refer to the ones that cross KU to go to destinations that are not on campus. Coordination is a term that refers to everything we do together with Lawrence Transit, transit agency for the city. Additionally, there are a couple of operational terms we want to define. Interlining is when we run one bus on 2 routes in continuous loop. This allows us to achieve operational efficiencies with fewer buses clogging Jayhawk Boulevard to provide the same amount of service on the routes going off campus. And frequency describes how often the buses on any given route come to a particular bus stop, or how long a passenger would have to wait for the next bus to arrive here. Changing the frequency happens through adding more buses or taking them away on the route. And finally, let's talk about efficiency and cost effectiveness. Discussion about what makes bus service efficient is significant because of the different ways we understand efficiency as a performance metric. What are some of the things that you all think of when you think of efficiency or cost effectiveness in relation to services that are offered? The definitions of these words change depending on your perspective. For passengers, students, the idea of efficiency tends to revolve around how often the buses arrive, how long it will take to get somewhere, will there be a bus when I need it? And for the perspective of someone running a bus system, the idea of efficiency is geared more towards how many people can be served with the resources, the money that we have. If we're looking at how efficient a route is, for example, the factors are how many passengers ride in an hour, or on each trip, or per mile. And the cost of providing service divided by the number of passengers is used to calculate the cost of ride. We'll talk more about ridership in a bit. So now let's discuss the transit services offered here at KU. The main and most visible service we operate is KU on Wheels, the university's bus system. Much of our service focuses on getting students to class on time, with most of our routes operating during the fall and spring semesters when the most students are in town. In addition to KU and coordinated routes listed here, the city operates 8 more bus routes from 6 to 8, Monday through Saturday, year-round, which all students can ride.
This is the coordinated bus route map showing all of the KU, city, and coordinated routes. Last year, we completed a route redesign study that included all of the routes. The recommendations, public feedback, and final report are all on the Lawrence Transit website at this link. The recommendations for changes to KU and coordinated routes have already been implemented this year, and changes for the city routes will go into effect when the new transit hub opens in August. Speaking of which, construction has started on the transit hub in the last few weeks. If you head out on Bob Billings, you can see where they're starting to clear the corner near public safety.
Also, here we have a detail map which highlights how the buses travel to and through campus, including all the KU routes, coordinated routes, and 2 city routes. As you can see, all the major roads throughout the main campus have bus service, giving students direct transit operations and options through between most of the major destinations. Most of these routes operate Monday through Friday when fall and spring classes are in session. However, 4 of these routes operate year-round, 3 of which also run on Saturdays.
J-Lift is KU's 88 paratransit service, which provides trips for students and staff if they are not able to easily use the regular bus routes. The Student Access Center handles the certifications for students, and HR does the same for faculty and staff. We normally have between 15 and 20 permanent riders at any given time, and another 5 to 10 temporary riders throughout the year. In 2020, we piloted adding Burt Nash to the approved destinations for J-Lift in order to improve student access to mental health services after a referral from CAPS. These rides are given on a space available basis. We prioritize the paratransit rides, and we've continued to offer the trips since the demand for J-Lift is generally relatively low.
Now let's talk about Safe Ride and Safe Bus a little bit. KU's Safe Ride program, the oldest of its kind at the university, was established in 1986 and continues to be extremely popular with students. They can get a free ride home from anywhere inside of the city limits 7 nights per week when classes are in session in the fall and spring, and 3 nights a week in the summer semester. Safe Ride also operates during key holidays such as New Year's Eve, 4th of July, when people tend to be out to ensure that people can still get home safely. We're excited to share a lot of interesting data when we get to that part of our presentation shortly.
We also have 2 services that are not fee funded. Airport shuttles were piloted 3 years ago, just going into the pandemic. And we're giving students a more affordable option to get to the airport for travel around class breaks, fall, Thanksgiving, winter, and spring. It has been very popular and the usage is getting bigger on every break every year. Secondary use is when other university departments request buses for their events. The rate is set to break even for our cost and depends on the source of funds being used. One of the key factors of having a robust transit system is that we have today is the partnership and coordination between the university and city transit systems. We work together with Lawrence Transit to use our resources as efficiently as possible in every way we can think of in order to maximize every dollar invested in transit service. This includes 2 routes, 11 and 12, but many of our coordination efforts are behind the scenes and less apparent to passengers. This is a short timeline to show some key milestones of the coordination efforts, including some consultant studies, and the bar across the bottom shows the service providers for KU up until we started doing coordinated joint contracts for the last 15 years. This year's major milestone is the construction of the transit hub that I mentioned a little bit ago, and that will bring many city routes much closer to campus. We also jointly operate all of the city and university services from one building, which maximizes resources by eliminating the need for 2 entirely separate groups of dispatch, maintenance, and management staff. Our memorandum of understanding with the city includes the physical infrastructure, vehicles, technical hardware and software, among other things. All of these contribute to more efficient use of your student fee dollars and would lead to significantly higher costs to operate KU's transit services if we stop these coordination efforts. I need 4 hands. A phrase that we often said in the early years of coordination is a bus is a bus is a bus is a bus. That phrase embodies the idea that passengers should just know they can board any bus anywhere in town. This effort started with merging our printed maps and schedules into the single transit guide that should be familiar to you today, and consolidating all of our customer service efforts into a single point of contact. Today, that includes the MyBus Lawrence app for real-time bus location and arrival information, and Google Transit for route planning purposes. And this year, riding any bus is even easier because Lawrence Transit is piloting fare free in 2023. For students, that means you no longer need to show an ID card to board any bus anywhere in town other than the K-10 connector. Recently, we've heard there's some confusion about why we would ask to increase fees to pay for city bus routes. So we wanted to quickly explain that we are still 2 separate entities with different sources of funds. KU funds pay for the KU routes, everything numbered 30 and higher. City funds pay for city routes, which is everything 1 through 10, 15, and 27. And then we each contribute funds to pay for the coordinated routes, 11 and 12. This actually tells us that our coordination efforts are pretty successful, enough that people don't realize that we're actually still 2 distinct transit agencies.
Transportation collects a massive amount of data, so it's sometimes hard to know what to present and what to show people. How do we compile and parse this information to understand what it all means? We get data from a lot of different places, such as the monthly reports of First Transit, contract provider, reports from our technology platforms, Double Map for the buses, and Spare for Safe Ride. We also use KU's data sources like the fact book and financial reports that are generated. We make an annual report to the National Transit Database, a federal agency, which includes data from every federally funded transit agency in the United States, in which we can use to compare our service to other locations across the country. And finally, we also conduct surveys, host public meetings, and receive feedback from passengers by email, which we take into consideration.
One of the questions you asked us for this process this year is how many students used your services in the past year. We don't actually track students' individual usage in order to keep the boarding process as easy and quick as possible. But if you take the ridership on the KU and city routes that go to or through campus in FY22, that was about 1.4 million trips. That's an average of 58.5 rides per student throughout the academic year. However, this is from our route planning software called Remix, which lets us analyze the number of students that are directly served by bus routes. This map just shows the routes that go to or through campus, not all of the city routes. And it shows that 11,550 students live within a quarter mile of a bus stop. And it goes up to 13,000 students if you count a half mile from the bus stop, which is about 54% of the students on the Lawrence campus. When you take that 1.4 million rides and divide it by 11,550, the average rides per student goes up to over 120 in a year. When the new hub opens, almost 14,000 students will be living in close proximity to bus routes that go to or through campus. So before we show you the ridership, oh, that didn't work out well. I'm sorry, some of my stuff isn't working right. The gray section shows you how much less service is offered this year based on the number of buses on every route or interline set of routes. The yellow section shows the ridership on all of the bus routes up to the end of January. We went ahead and included the city routes so that you can see the general trends on buses overall. But Route 10 is highlighted here because it goes through campus and has gone up substantially. On the off-campus routes, as you can see, the lower amount of ridership correlates closely with the amount of service that was reduced. The coordinated routes are not down quite as much. We don't really know what the difference is, but I suppose it could be because the frequency only went down on half of that interlined route. These similarities tell us that the lower ridership is not an indication that students are not willing to take the bus, but rather that the service reductions probably impact passenger convenience enough that they choose other modes of transportation. We are very happy to see that the campus circulators do seem to be stabilizing in their ridership. We also thought it would be worthwhile to show you how the ridership in these routes compared to the pre-pandemic numbers, when our annual ridership usually approached 2.5 to 3 million rides per year. This is a visual representation of the ridership numbers from the previous slide for the coordinated and KU routes. The key takeaway here is that ridership was already down due to changes in use patterns during the pandemic, and then has dropped further due to the lower service levels.
Let's take a look at the Safe Ride ridership here. Safe Ride has proved to be a valuable service here at KU, convenience and safety. KU Public Safety claims that offering free, convenient rides home to KU students within the city limits of Lawrence has cut down on the number of suspected DUIs and DWIs on and near campus. Ridership is increasing steadily over the past 7 years, with one of the obvious exceptions of low ridership during the height of the COVID pandemic. Last year, we had the highest ever ridership on Safe Ride. This year, we project an annual ridership about 10% lower than last year, and still 10% higher than the highest year before the pandemic.
Alongside Safe Ride last spring, we started back up with a Safe Bus route that we had previously from fiscal year 2008 through fiscal year 18. So this ridership graph shows those first 2 years. The idea here is to give you some perspective that the ridership on this year's version of Safe Bus is in line with where we were at the last time it was a new service.
Now, let's take a look at the dashboard for the new app for Safe Ride. It has very useful analytics dashboards here that tell us a lot about the service. The snapshot here covers the same period as our ridership in the previous graph at the end of January of this calendar year. Cancellation rates around 40% are considered average for a university nighttime ride home service. We're doing well there. And almost all bookings for rides come from the Safe Ride mobile app, which is more convenient for students. Phone booking is still always an option. And this first is a heat map of safe ride pickup data, which indicates the intersection of 14th and Tennessee is very popular. Also, downtown Lawrence and the dorms near Daisy Hill are common pickup locations. And second, we have a safe ride data map again that indicates drop-offs are more common around the GSP Corbin corridor as well as the Daisy Hill dorms. The red areas represent the highest passenger density. And third, and finally, here's the rest of the safe ride drop-off heat map. Rockland, Connection, and the Reserve see a lot of student traffic using safe ride to get home.
So now that we've covered background and logistics, we'd like to give you the overview of the fee simulations that we submitted for your consideration. But before we talk about the specifics, we wanted to note that this year's fee simulation for operations looks very different than in past years. So if you're comparing it to previous submissions, it looks different because we've included all of the transit cost centers, including the revenue neutral funded by parking fees or those paid by the city, which they pay for building and fuel expenses. We thought it was important to give you a more complete understanding of the financial picture for transit instead of only the student fee funded portions of the service. We definitely welcome any questions that raises for you. Inflation is a key factor for our costs. As you all know, inflation has impacted the price of gas, and it's also been a factor for bus maintenance parts and wages. Prices are up across the board, especially when it comes to diesel and gas, and we use over 100,000 gallons of diesel in a year of KU on Wheels service. The other unknown cost this year comes from our contract. This is the last year of the service contract with First Transit, and we will solicit proposals over the summer and know the next contract sometime in October. So we won't know the prices for 2024 through 2028 until much later this year. The two basic assumptions that we've made to prepare the simulations is to project a cost increase of 7.5% over this year. This is to keep our estimate very conservative, and the other part is that we would keep the existing routes and timings that we have this year. So for the operations fee, the simulations we provided had 4 different funding options. In this table, I didn't include scenario B because any other reduction in our fee will mean cutting whole bus routes. Scenario A showed the calculation of the fee amount we would need next year just to keep the service that we have right now. That's $4.10. Scenario C calculates how much of a fee would be required to restore service levels to be more like last year on the campus circulators, which would be $11.85, which is the $4.10 plus $7.75. This is the recommendation that was approved by the Transit Commission at their meeting on Monday, which is why we've highlighted these 2 lines in the table. But since there was such a significant change to the off-campus routes, we wanted to mention that scenario D was also submitted to show what it would take to restore 20-minute frequency on those routes, which is a total of 1825, 410 plus 1415. And if you add all of these together to get all of the bus service back that we had last year would take a $26 fee increase. We're not asking for that. We just wanted to give you a perspective of what it would take. Whatever the amount of potential fee increase you recommend for the bus operations fee, the Transit Commission will work to apply those funds as strategically as possible across all of the routes. In general, I can tell you it costs more than $200,000 a year to add a bus to a bus route. So here's a quick graph that shows the history of the operations fee over the last 15 years. I included to show where fare free started. And it does show you how flat our fee has been for most of that time. Beginning in 2013, we made presentations to this fee review committee explaining that while we've had a carry forward to use, eventually inflation would reach a point where it would not keep up without small incremental increases over time. The red line represents the scenarios that we submitted for the FY24 fee review process. And then finally, I calculated what a 4% inflation over the time since FY16 would look like. And I was pretty surprised to see that it ended up within 50 cents of what a $26 increase would get us to. And that's why I shared it here to show you that that increase is in line with how inflation has impacted our prices.
Submitted a scenario for Safe Ride that recommends no change, which was approved by the Transit Commission on Monday. While you can see that Safe Ride operates at a loss each year, compared to the fee revenue, there is sufficient carry forward to sustain the current level of Safe Ride and Safe Bus service for a few more years. It's important to note that the new Safe Ride app provider, Spare, costs approximately $50,000 more in annual fees compared to the previous app. First Transit is covering the difference in costs throughout the end of the current calendar year, which is the contract, which was very generous investment in the KU Safe Ride program, which improves student experience and function. This change was necessary because the previous app, called Tap Ride, was slated to stop being supported at the end of the calendar year 2022, so we had to make a switch. This increase in cost is consistent with increases in provider costs across the transit app industry, making Spare's price competitive. We also think that Spare provides better functionality for students to book rides and better routing for drivers, making the service superior. And also, the Transit Commission has approved submitting no change to the bus procurement fee. If service were to be maintained at the fiscal year 2023 level for fiscal year 2024, this fee review hearing, there will be discussion about downsizing the KU bus fleet. The average lifespan of a new bus is around 15 years, and we have just reached the end of the first 15-year cycle of new bus procurement. From experience with our original used bus fleet, we know that the cost of maintaining older buses is exponentially higher and can reach the cost of a whole new bus in a year. Parts need to be replaced more often and more maintenance needs to be done. With this 15-year replacement plan, the average age of the bus fleet stays approximately the same, which rotates buses in and out, helps level out the maintenance and fleet costs overall. And we're aware that the transportation fees combined make up almost 20% of the student fee total. Every cent of the fee money is allocated to KU transportation is utilized carefully for cost efficiency at the forefront of this mission. Running a public service such as transit and bus routes is extremely expensive when scaled. For context, a new bus engine is $65,000, which is $1.60 in student fee dollars. One new diesel bus costs $500,000, which is over $12 in student fee dollars alone. When comparing this number to other valuable student organizations in fee dollar terms, the sheer scale is evident. For instance, the UDK readership fee is $1.80 worth of fee money. The entire recreation center maintenance fee is $3.25. Student money management, is around $2.75. The idea here is not to pick on any particular fee. We believe that the fee entity in every one provides a valuable service to the KU community. Rather, this is to give context for the orders of magnitude and size of this fee involved. Fee dollar amount does not determine the importance of the fee entity, but as the inverse is also true here. A large fee dollar amount does not necessarily mean there is more room to adjust the funding down. As mentioned above, the size of the fleet is driven by the number of buses we're operating in full service. If the bus operations fee stays at an amount that keeps the current level of service or declines the service, funding is at or below a $4 fee increase would be that amount. The bus fleet would have to be downsized to maintain cost efficiency. The bus replacement cycle would change in quantity of buses, but would still take place over the 15-year life cycle of ones. Some more information about electric buses as well. KU's heavy-duty transit buses consume more than 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel to operate the services we've described throughout this presentation. When you calculate those emissions based on fuel consumption, KU's buses emit an estimated 2,000 tons of greenhouse gases per year. Reducing our use of combustible fuels individually and collectively will reduce the university's carbon footprint in significant ways.
In 2020, KU explored the possibility of starting to have electric buses in the fleet and participated in the low-no emissions bus grant application that the city won that year, bringing the first 5 electric buses to Lawrence last summer. This pictures are buses running here in town today. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we ended up not taking any of the electric buses, but staff are continuing to explore the possibility of converting at least a portion of KU's bus fleet to electric. However, as you can see here, the price of a new electric bus is more than double of a regular diesel bus, which means that pursuing future grant funding is a key component of the process. There are also a lot of other factors to consider, like the cost of the charging infrastructure, paving the rest of our property out at the bus facility in order to make room for that charging infrastructure, the range of the bus on a single charge, which determines how many buses you need to operate one day of service, and the changes to that range based on extreme temperatures, which put higher demand on the battery for heating and cooling. We plan to continue to investigate all of the aspects of potentially switching to electric buses and hope to have a draft transition plan by this time next year.
Before we finish up today, I'd like to talk a little bit about how important KU's transit services are, which benefit everyone in the community from multiple perspectives. We must ask ourselves, though, is sustainability limited to the environment? We believe not. While lowering carbon emissions and improving the environmental standing of KU transportation is important, so are fiscal and social implications of transportation. KU is an international research university with students, faculty, and staff from all around the world. People come from KU from larger cities with robust transit networks, but also reside in rural areas in which to have access to quality, convenient public transit. For instance, it's a very big draw in career-focused cities like New York, London, Beijing, and more. Fostering the civic knowledge of transit systems allows KU students to advocate for their neighbors' needs as well as their own. Transit's a prerequisite to social organizations with horrific missions because students must be able to travel to these events. Those without cars or other forms of transit need reliable access to other fee-funded valuable services like LSS, OMA, Bert Nash, Watkins, and more. Public transportation is, above all, a mobility tool. Certain students are more likely to use transit as their primary means of local transportation, including people without a car who might have no other transportation options besides public transit. Persons with disabilities who cannot drive or have difficulty driving. Low-income individuals. Transit is obviously less expensive than a car. People ages 15 to 24. Young people recently have shown a greater interest in transit, walking, and biking across the country. And reducing student costs in university parking and road maintenance expenses are also tangible benefits that would be in effect this week. And also, is the goal to maximize transit access for KU students and faculty, or is the goal for efficient transit to maximize service with the absolute minimum cost? This is a question we have to ask ourselves. Also, what exactly makes transit cost effective? Is there a good conversation to be had around effective transit providing maximum ridership, or ensuring that transit disadvantaged folks, such as those without cars, have ways to get to class and work?
That brings us to the end of our formal presentation, and I would love to answer any and all questions you have.
Thank you so much. What questions do you have, Drew? Sophia.
Hi, thanks for having it today. I was curious on the longevity of electric buses versus diesel buses. Is it about the same in 15 years? Or?
There is no data on that yet because electric buses have not existed for 15 years yet. The theory is that they will last a bit longer because they have less friction points with no combustion engine, but there's no data to back it up yet. So your guess is as good as mine, but we hope longer.
One thing to add on that though, sort of related, is batteries are getting better every year. So like right now, Margaret had stated that we don't know if one bus would last an entire day on a route because the battery charge might not last, especially in the cold weather. 2 years from now or 3 years from now, with the batteries getting better, that may be the case. So that's a plus.
I'll add on to that the buses that the city got this last year have a 444 kilowatt hour range or capacity. Their next buses will have a 680 kilowatt hour capacity, and the new route modeling, they included Route 43 just to see, and that is almost enough to do Route 43 all day long, which has to do with the number of people who board the bus and how heavy it is and going up and down the hill all day.
So I wanted to ask where most of your costs are coming from. Is it more so from the city routes or more so from like campus related routes? Or when you guys are presenting this data, is it what?
All of our data is for KU routes only. Okay. I've provided some context for the city routes, but the city pays for those routes. We're not contributing financially to the city routes.
We contribute to the two co-coordinated routes.
Yep. I have a question. Last year, it was brought up by this group, if you review, that there were concerns about KU students bankrolling the ridership of non-KU students, particularly individuals in Lawrence. Can you speak to any data you might have that, you know, addresses that concern?
The slide that we showed that shows the sources of funding for city routes and KU routes is the main one that I have. Everything that is routes 1 through 10, 15, and 27 don't get any funding from KU of any kind. So only the routes that KU pays for are the ones that we're looking at. The contribution that students are making to city routes is your local sales tax dollars. So when you go out shopping at Walmart or wherever, some 0.02% of the sales tax is going to city transit, and that's true of everybody in town. But that's the only amount that students are paying to city routes.
So more particularly though, in terms of ridership, do you have any data on what percentage of your riders on the KU routes are actually KU students?
Sort of. We don't tabulate on campus at all who's getting on the bus. So outside of that, 99% of students on KU route, or 99% of the ridership on the KU routes where we're counting is KU students. Generally, that's everybody boarding off campus. On the coordinated routes, the percentage of KU students versus everyone else is 94%. And on the city routes that come to or through campus, the percentage is 85% KU students using a city route to get to campus. That's based on FY18 data. That was the last time that I calculated it.
Okay, and I want to put this to rest once and for all because this was such a prominent concern last year. Is there any reasonable way it could be construed that KU students are financing to an unfair or unreasonable extent ridership of non-KU students?
I don't believe so. On the off-campus routes, everything that went off campus, people who were riding who were not KU students were paying the dollar fare that the city charges. So they were still having to pay to get on a bus. Buses weren't free until January this year.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure, yes. Holly?
I was obviously involved last year and the year before, and I know transit really important to students, but we have such a small budget because the Council Board of Regents said giving us like around $14 to increase, and I know that wouldn't necessarily fit into everything that you will need. But my question is, recycling is kind of having a similar issue, and we have asked leadership at this institution for university funds in order to offset paying, not so it's not all through the student fee. Have you done anything like that, like spoken with administration to see if they can give a percentage or help pay towards transportation on our campus?
I don't think that we've had that conversation, but that would be the 10% of the budget that comes from parking dollars.
Yeah.
And so the 10% from parking is there to help offset the cost of faculty and staff riding the bus.
Okay.
But we're pretty sure that 99% of the ridership on routes is from students, not staff.
Hara?
We have talked before through emails like long pages. One of the things that you have mentioned for the some of like bad service last semester was cut in your funding because of the previous senates. Do you think if there is such thing that happening again this time will affect more on-campus routes here?
I'm going to repeat your question to make sure I understood it. If we get a cut again, or if it stays flat.
Even if it stays flat or like a little bit cut, is it going to affect on-campus next year?
Yes, all the routes will be impacted in some way, and some routes will have to be canceled altogether.
But to add on to that's not us making that decision. That's the Transit Commission. We would go back to them for the input. So if there wasn't, say, another decrease, we would go back to them and say, we need to cut X out of the budget for next year. Do you think that's low ridership on an off-campus route? Do you think that's removing one more or two more circulators from one of the on-campus buses? What do you guys think? So we would take it back to the Transit Commission, for a final vote on it.
And we also come up with every option so that they have things to choose from, not just telling them what we think is the best idea.
So, series of questions. Is the 45 fleet of buses and all of your repair costs specifically also related to KU bus route related buses? Or is that the
The bus fleet is in its own fee, as procurement. And there's a contribution from parking into that fund as well. That's proportional to the number of revenue hours, which is how we count service. So we tabulate the percentage of revenue hours and then calculate the depreciation value of the buses times those hours to contribute to that fee. Safe Ride is run with cars that are owned by First Transit, and so they are not part of that. It's part of our operating contract. and charge to Safe Ride. Does that answer your question?
So let me repeat like same thing you did before. Basically, the percentage of use that KU has for the buses is applied to your total percentage of cost for bus repairs.
Yes.
My second question is there a way to similarly monetize Safe Ride at night?
Do you mean charging students to ride it?
Residents that are not KU students.
No.
You have to be.
For the first, I'll say Safe Ride is only for KU students. Nobody who, I can't even ride Safe Ride unless I don't ride it even if I'm enrolled because I'm not paying the fee, but technically even KU staff can't ride it. The benefit of using the KU single sign-on is that it can determine if your student or staff to be eligible for it. And so only students are paying for it and only students are using it. Residents of Lawrence have Nightline service, which is scheduled in advance during the daytime hours, but runs throughout the night.
Or just to add to that too, even if we did charge. The amount of city ridership that would now come into Safe Ride would mean more vehicles, more drivers, more costs. Which means we wouldn't be making any money off of it, I think is what you were trying to maybe say, could you make money off of Safe Ride possibly? If that was where you were going, if it wasn't.
Yeah, so the difference between a $4 increase and a $9 increase is pretty substantial.
It is.
What would like a $7 increase?
We would calculate how many hours that gives us, and then we would give the Transit Commission all the choices about how to apply it to the different routes.
I use the 10th in Indiana, 11th in Indiana bus stop, right? And the amount of times that I've had a red 43 right past me because it's full and there's no spots in it. It's frankly infuriating, and the amount of times it happens in the rain, it seems is even higher.
More people ride the bus when the weather is bad.
Okay, so
That's
yeah, you know, even more inconvenient for the rest of us, right? So my question for you, Margareta, is we give you the $11.75 or whatever the exact amount is. Is that going to continue happening? Are red 43 buses and campus circulators going to be routinely turning students away because they don't have space to fit them on the bus?
I hope, my answer is I hope not.
Okay.
Like the idea would be to increase the frequency enough that there would be enough buses, but that wouldn't happen. But I will tell you that even before the pandemic, when we were having 7,000 people ride Route 43 every day, that happened from time to time. It wouldn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Even when
Ridership was way higher back then.
ridership was higher, but there were more buses. They ran every 7 minutes. That frequency, when people feel like they have the flexibility to take an earlier bus and they won't be too far out of their schedule, tends to spread the ridership out better. So you're experiencing one of the terrible side effects of having fewer buses on.
So I asked this because that was the #1 piece of feedback we received on the survey was, you know.
Yes.
So
Are you going to share that with us? Because I would love to see all the feedback about transit. So
that is tonight's project. I'm going to go through all the 500 or so written responses we received. So to clarify again, you can't fix necessarily with the $11 increase the problem of buses being full, but it'll also mean that students are having to wait a substantially shorter period of time for the next one to come in order
that's
for them
the
to get to class.
intention, yes.
Okay.
But
one other thing to add too is if you can share that data, that is data that we would take back to the Transit Commission, because if it says focus your energies on campus circulators, that's what we would do, right?
I will say that we also had a transit specific survey about the fee increase needed to reach a level of service from last year. And as a bonus, I put the results we have with only 40 people having filled it out so far at the back end of your handout, so that if you want to see what people thought was more important, that's the last few pages.
Some girl with walking order at like 4 a.m. in the middle of the winter.
Yes, people would like Safe Ride to run all night and things like that. And so with Nightline being fare free, and the city is planning to pilot micro transit in August, which means that they will have something like the Safe Ride app to request a ride on Nightline and on Sundays, which should make some kind of service available all night to everyone.
Other questions? I see your heart. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Question on Safe Ride. Last year, the traffic was really high. And the wait times are also really high. Did you do anything to address it or?
The Safe Ride has exactly the same amount of service this year that it did last year. The patterns, there are no patterns in Safe Ride other than that I can tell you that up until last year, the highest ridership of the night every year was the Saturday or Friday closest to Halloween. Last year was the first time that wasn't true. And so the patterns are changing, and I think it's partly because what they do at night changes from year to year. And so I hesitate to guess the answer to that. But we do have data, and there's a whole lot of other data that Spare gives us that we can use to analyze how many rides per hour and make sure that we're using the right number of cars on the right nights and sort of shift cars from, say, Sunday to Friday, so that we're using those hours on a night where they would be more useful.
Most Sunday nights, ridership's the lowest, right? But not this Sunday night, because there's a Super Bowl and the Chiefs happen to be in, so we will be having our maximum amount of cars out for this Sunday night, and instead of starting at 10:30, we'll start at 8:30. So again, we'll look for things like that, these that happen every now and then to try to make adjustments to help the students, so.
Thank you. Any final questions?
Okay, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your presentation. I presume you all will be available via email if we have additional questions for you. Wonderful.
Absolutely. I welcome questions. I would rather answer them than have you guess them.
We will be sure to be in touch. Is UDK out there, Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Special.
We were up to 41.
You're awesome.
Yeah, really good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being responsive on the daily.
Oh,
yeah. Appreciate it.
We're trying to do a better job of answering the question.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. There's just so much information.
Yes,
You only know, you haven't looked at it.
Okay, can I just say, if anybody wants to look at the data or ever, come see me and I'll show it to you.
I'll let them know.
If you want to, in like a standing. Yeah. We summarize that stuff. Because that's gonna be tomorrow.
Either work in the office or
Would be nice as a parking ticket forgiveness.
well, if you're.
You gotta pay for the buses.
Yeah, there is a for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you have one, you want me to learn how to first.
I paid 170 tickets.
You should know.
Good to see you, Chris.
It'll be.
Awesome. Give you like dapper.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Going on a hike.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
That's exactly why.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I apologize to interrupt all the conversation, but we are so close to being done. Think about that. We are almost done with our trainings. That makes me so excited. I hope you all share my ebullience at the prospect of getting to sit down in a room and work this out instead of just listening to presentations. In no way to diminish the importance of what we're about to hear today. Please welcome University Daily Kansan, the student voice since 1904. Is that correct, Hannah?
Yes.
1904. Okay, and welcome. Who do we have presenting today? Hannah Nystrom,
I'm Sarah Maloney.
Sarah Maloney, and
I'm Nick Youngman. I'm the director of strategy for UDK in the School of Journalism.
Nick. Thank you so much. Your presentation is projected on the screen. I'm not entirely sure if I can do this in Adobe Illustrator, but like you can just scroll through. Is that okay?
Yeah, I can just scroll through. I mean, it might be better if it were full screen, but
hang on.
it's just a PDF, so you could download it.
That's actually a good point. They don't pay me to be smart.
There we go. Now just go to full screen and you can.
Oh, wait, hang on.
You do it from view. Very well.
Here we go. Sorry.
There we go.
There you are.
Excellent. All right, thanks. So my name's Nick Youngman. I've only been here since August. So I'm pretty new to KU and actually relatively new to the Kansan. But for 9 years before coming here, I was the director of student media at the University of Oklahoma. And so what I've done a lot of in the last few months is to kind of compare what's happening here at the Kansan with what's happened with OU Daily at the University of Oklahoma, which I think has gone through some similar struggles in the past. And that informs some of my view of where the Kansan is today. And I'm joined, as you just noticed, by Sarah Maloney and Hera Nystrom. They are the co-editors in chief of the Kansan this semester and are here also to answer any questions that you all might have. But I want to emphasize up front how much impact the Kansan has. In 2022, this is for the calendar year 2022, the Kansan had almost 610,000 unique users. Now, granted, only about 10% of those users are in Lawrence, and another 10% we can trace to being in Kansas or in the Kansas City metropolitan area. But still, 10% of that number is also a huge impact number, given the size of Lawrence and the size of the university. 1.1 million page views. In 2022, we distributed 44,000 papers at men's basketball games. We feel we're an important part of that tradition, of course. And the Kansan has 18,000 Twitter followers and 11,300 Instagram followers. And as of today, we have how many TikTok followers?
We're at 300 something.
We're starting from practically zero.
Yeah.
So we're really going all in on TikTok right now because we know that that's where our student audiences are. And to be perfectly honest, we're super intrigued by TikTok because the state seems to be against it right now. This is high impact, but all these numbers could be much better, I think, and we'll talk about that. The Kansan is for all of KU. I think one weakness of the Kansan right now is that it's very much been taken over, not taken over, but shepherded into safety by the School of Journalism in recent semesters. And it does seem, I think, right now, like the Kansan is mostly for the School of Journalism, and it is integrated into several journalism classes. But it's not required that you be a journalism major to work for the Kansan. On the contrary, we love having students who are not journalism majors working for the Kansan, but that's an obstacle right now that I'll talk about. Undergraduate and graduate students are welcome, although I'm not sure we have any graduate students working for us right now, but certainly a possibility that we welcome. Sales and marketing opportunities attract students from other majors more than the journalism side, and we have several people from the School of Business who work in sales and marketing for the Kansan. Editors are working to reestablish beats among our reporting staff so that we have a better 360-degree view of the university, and that's a work in progress. But I think paid positions would make the Kansan much more attractive to non-journalism majors, and that'll be the heart of the presentation as we continue. The Kansan is definitely in transition. Some of you may know this story, but somehow, and I'm still trying to figure out how this could have possibly even happened, but at some point 2 years ago, the Kansan for a decade had accumulated about $400,000 in debt. My predecessor did the hard work of getting the university to resolve that debt, and I think largely forgive it. But in the process of doing that, we stripped down the operations of the Kansan so that it practically doesn't spend any money. Basically, the money that's allocated to the Kansan right now pays my salary, and it pays for the software we use to put the Kansan together and to broadcast it online, but we're not paying any student staff currently. We are in the process right now of launching a UDK app, which we think will do a lot to help us reach out and connect with more students than we connect with now. That app is actually available for download. So if you go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and search for Kansan, you will find it, but we're still tweaking it. It's not in perfect shape yet. There's some stories featured there that are not current. We're still figuring out how to make all of that work. And so we're calling it a soft launch. We haven't really publicized it yet, but you're welcome to see it if you would like. One nice thing about the app will be that if you accept push alerts, then it will allow us to send headlines to students. And so when there's an emergency on campus or some kind of breaking news that we think students need to know right away, we'll be able to push that headline to students immediately. And then if they click on the headline, they'll open the app and see the story. I've heard a lot from students and others on campus that they miss that there's not a print edition of the Kansan that's available on campus. Obviously, there is a sort of a print edition in the basketball issue that we produce, but we do that exclusively for basketball games. We don't distribute that anywhere else. And it's something we're really thinking about, because I think, you know, it would behoove the Kansan to have something in print, something available on racks across campus to remind students that the Kansan exists. And that's something we're definitely exploring. But one challenge with print is that there has to be the advertising there to offset the printing costs, or at least that's our formulation of it right now. And then, as I mentioned at the top, we're working really hard to do a better job of engaging students in social media. The TikToks that they've been doing right now are a lot of fun, I think, and I think that level of fun that TikTok involves would go a long way to help us build a stronger Kansan audience. I think the Kansan hasn't been a whole lot of fun in recent semesters, and that's something that I know Sarah and Hannah are really working to change in the culture of the Kansan right now. But the Kansan is labor intensive. A daily news organization requires daily effort. And right now, the University Daily Kansan, despite the word daily in its name, isn't quite a daily news organization. We're not consistently posting headlines every day representing that day's news. And that's something that we would really like to be able to change. But the problem is that an all-volunteer organization can only do so much. Historically, the Kansan has had a paid staff. And historically, the Kansan has been one of the top student newspapers in the entire country. If you were to ask people who are familiar with student media anywhere in the United States, and they were to list the 10 or 20 top student newspapers in the country, the University Daily Kansan would be on almost anybody's list. But right now, we're relying solely on volunteers. And I think you can see that reflected in the volume of content and the quality of content that you see on Kansan.com right now. You know, that reflects the effort of volunteers. There's no paid staff. Relying solely on volunteers also creates an equity and inclusion problem for campus journalism. You know, if we can't pay students to do the work of the Kansan, then we are at the mercy of the students who can afford to spend their free time with the Kansan. And quite honestly, that's not a whole lot of students. You know, it's a lot of work to put together a daily news product, and that work should be compensated. And right now, the Kansan just doesn't have the financial means to pay student staff, and we would like to be able to do that. And I think it would pay off. Right now, I think you as students are getting what you're paying for in terms of the Kansan. Advertising is not the chief or even really a viable revenue model, especially for student newsrooms. Or local newspapers in general. You all know this, but local newspapers are shrinking because they no longer are effective vehicles for local advertising. The Lawrence Journal World is a good example of this. Once upon a time, the Lawrence Journal World was probably one of the great newspapers of its size in the country. In fact, in journalism circles, where I spent most of my career, the Lawrence Journal World was on the tips of people's tongues as being super innovative and doing all sorts of neat things in online space before any other newspaper was doing that. And today, I think the Lawrence Journal World has an editorial staff of about 5. Is that right, Matthew? 8. All right, underestimated it slightly, but still, that's down from an editorial staff of 30 or 40 or 50, 20 or 30 years ago. They're being forced to downsize because advertising simply doesn't pay the bills. The Lawrence Journal relies heavily on a paywall model, but the problem with paywall models is they limit the reach and impact of the journalism that the organization is doing. When you hide the journalism behind a paywall, then it only goes to the people who can pay for it. And that again is an equity and inclusion problem. And obviously we can't expect students to pay directly, you know, to bring down a paywall to get information that they need and that they want. The market rates for online advertising are not favorable to the Kansan in its current situation. A typical rate for online advertising is about $12 for 1,000 impressions. And the Kansan just doesn't generate enough impressions on a consistent enough basis to where we can ever make $12 per 1,000 impressions pay many bills. But a stronger Kansan will generate more traffic, which will make that business better. But it's still a pretty weak business given the Kansan's business model, or the Kansan's audience model, I should say. Local journalism is largely moving to a freemium or sponsorship model. Think about public radio and how public radio is free to everyone to listen to, but they ask people to donate to help keep public radio alive. That's a model we're seeing in a lot of news organizations now, not just in public media, but in startups like Lawrence Times is a good example of that. If you're from Kansas City, you may be familiar with the Kansas City Beacon. The Kansas Reflector is another example of this. And these are startup organizations that are relying on grant funding and they're relying on donations from their readers. Obviously, students are not a big font of potential donations to a news organization. We strongly believe that the Kansan must preserve free access to high quality content for the entire KU community. The Kansan is underfunded relative to its peers. This data comes from the Western Association of University Publication Managers. This is an elite group of about the 40 largest student media organizations in the country. KU is still a member of this group because we're still serving a lot of students. I would say we could, depending on how you at what level you gauge involvement, there could be 100 students working for the Kansan, doing a story or two every semester. And so we're still quite a large organization and still peers to these organizations. But these are all schools in the Big 12. And you can see how they're being funded from student fees. Texas Tech is the outlier here, where they're getting $471,000 a year from fee funding. The OU Daily, where I just came from, gets almost $400,000 a year in student fees. The Daily Texan, and of course, Texas is a university that's about 2 or 3 times the size of KU. And so this is kind of an outlier too, in that they're only getting $281,000 out of their massive student fee. K-State is funding the Collegian to the tune of $218,000 a year, and Oklahoma State's funding the Ocali to the tune of $200,000 a year. What the Kansan would like to do is pay student staff. And we're not proposing to pay every student who works for the Kansan. We're proposing to pay a small group of about 16 students, and these would be the editors who make it happen on a daily basis, and a small segment of our most senior reporters who have earned a spot onto the most important beats like university administration, student life and student governance, things like that. We would strictly limit students to prescribed schedules ranging from 10 to 20 hours a week in order to keep these wage costs manageable. The trap the Kansan found itself in before that led to its $400,000 deficit was that it was paying students for any time that they were claiming, and there wasn't a lot of oversight of that. And the way this worked at OU Daily was that we held students to strict schedules. If you're the editor-in-chief, you're entitled to 20 hours a week. And after that, you better be delegating to other students. Our proposal costs, and you'll see our proposal on the next, I believe it's the next slide, or it's a couple slides in, would be $82,000. And that would fund 16 students at $10.50 an hour, working 10 to 20 hours a week. We are willing to start at any lower level than that. If that's an unrealistic ask for our appropriation, or it's an unrealistic increase in our appropriation, then we're willing to start smaller. It just means that we'll pay fewer students the same wage to work these hours and grow from there, we would hope. This is what a model of what it would look like. This isn't an exact proposal because we would want to leave the exact titles of things and the hours allotted to future editors to allot within whatever budget is set by this process, combined with whatever we can allocate from advertising revenue. But you can see how we get to the $82,000 here. Allocating 20 hours a week to the editor, 20 hours to the business manager in the hopes of really stoking our advertising business in the future more than we have right now. And then going on down, these are basically in kind of a rank order of importance and seniority, I would say. But this assumes 16 weeks per fall and spring semester and 8 weeks for the summer. Basically making sure that the Kansan is working all year long. I want to talk a little bit about accountability for the Kansan because I know that that's a challenge. Currently, the Kansan is sort of managed by a 7-member advisory board. That board was organized by the School of Journalism in the last couple of years and operates under a memorandum of understanding with the Office of Chancellor. And that board membership is composed of 3 School of Journalism professionals. So these are 3 professors and staff within the school. one person from KU Finance, and then we have an undergraduate student representative who is a journalism major, a graduate student representative who is a journalism doctoral student, and one representative from Student Senate, that's Alessia Garcia. This could change. And I want to recognize, and some of my predecessors and others think I'm crazy for asking the Student Senate for more money. Because as you know, Student Senate has historic beefs with the University of Daily Kansan. We haven't always seen eye to eye. And I fear that there's a reactionary nature to this relationship, that when the Kansan does something wrong, some senators go a little bit crazy, and the talk bubbles up that, oh my gosh, we're going to cut the Kansan's funding and make them do what we want, which to me is like a counterproductive argument, because cutting the Kansan funding just makes it worse. And I think we can build accountability into a board structure for the Kansan if that's something that Student Senate would need in order to consider being a bigger part of our revenue pie. A stronger board could be the literal publisher of the Kansan, basically the owner of the Kansan. That board would hire the editor, and then that editor would be accountable to the board at every meeting 2 or 3 times per semester. And that board would be a place where readers of the Kansan, including student senators, but really any student, because that's our constituency, is the entire KU community, not even students, anyone in the KU community could come before that board and make a complaint about something the Kansan did that was unfair or journalistically unethical, or that you feel the Kansan simply did not do its job. And then the board would be able to hold the editor accountable for that. Either the editor can figure out some kind of corrective action, or maybe the board agrees with the Kansan that it didn't do anything wrong. But it could create a process, a grievance process, by which we could all agree that the Kansan is governed in a way that benefits the KU community as a whole, and not just the students working for the Kansan. And I think such a board would help us, the Kansan, maintain its editorial independence. I mean, one danger of a fee structure where student government is funding student journalism is that it could create an expectation that student government has some sort of say about how student journalism is done. And I don't want to give that impression, but I do want to give you all the impression that we are willing to talk about how the Kansan is governed and how it could be held more accountable for the money allocated to it and how that money is spent, and whether the Kansan is a good deal for the dollar that you all are spending. Well, that students are spending and that you are spending on students' behalf. And that is the last slide. I'm happy to answer questions, and Sarah and Hannah are here to answer questions as well. Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I think that for most students that arrived either during the pandemic or after the pandemic, Kansan doesn't really play a large role in on-campus life and experience of students, with the exception of basketball games. So this is more so for the room, I guess. Anybody who was here before those times, can you speak to where the Kansan is now, to where it was maybe a decade ago, or 5 years ago, or 8 years ago?
Well, there's no newspapers on campus. I used to always do a pseudo for my classes, and I can't do that now. So I think that's
all right.
I used to pick a newspaper in Nichols Hall. Like you guys used to deliver to each building.
Yep.
And I used to pick it up, go to my office. That's the first thing I did every day for the past few years until everything got dismantled. I have read it online.
Right.
So is part of your, my follow-up to this, is part of your vision for this fee increase to restore the position that the Kansan once had, perhaps in the everyday lives of?
Yeah, I think one problem the Kansan has right now, and I would chalk this up. I have great admiration for my predecessor, who resolved a very difficult problem for the Kansan, but a mistake I think he made was in taking away all the racks the Kansan had across campus. There in every building you would walk in, and there would be a rack that says University of Daily Kansan on it. And at the end there wasn't anything on that rack, but at least that rack was there reminding you the University of Daily Kansan existed. And today, I think you could be a freshman or a sophomore on this campus, before those racks, from after those racks disappearance, and not have any idea that the Kansan exists unless you go to basketball games. And that's something that we would like to change, and that the app is part of the solution to that. I think getting that app into students' phones and really doing the marketing that makes that happen will be part of that. But also, I think there probably is some level of print that's in our future again, whether that's something that we do monthly or twice a semester or whatever.
Do you have a demonstrably effective action plan for boosting readership if you're given more funding?
That's a really good question, and that's the thing that we're formulating right now. So I don't have an actionable plan for you right now, but I know that the plan involves improving and increasing the Kansans audience. And in order to increase the audience and get more students involved and more students reading, we've got to create more content and higher quality content. Holly?
Okay, so obviously I've met you before and we had some like chats about this and stuff, and I think it's really important to pay our students on campus. Obviously we have about $14 increase that we can work with, and there's a lot of entities that need a lot of money.
Right.
So I saw in the simulation file, you were asking for around $2 increase, which is like 100%, which is kind of a lot.
Right.
So if we started off small and, for example, did like a 50-cent increase, would you be able to at least employ a few students with that kind of just because we're going to be so penny pinching?
Yeah, I know it's a big ask, and I'm kind of asking for what I think would be an ideal situation. I think if all of these people were paid, we'd have an awesome University Daily Kansas. But I recognize that that may not have been a realistic ask, and I don't have a window into, you know, who all exactly you're allocating, who's asking for what and how much money you have to spend. So my proposal is that we could cut this off, you know, depending on what the funding level is, you know, we'll just do that much.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and then hopefully, you know, as we have these people working for us and we're building better and more content, that'll help us build more audience, which will help us have more advertising. And then slowly, you know, we can start to come down and hire more and more of these people. And in the future year, you know, if enrollment grows, like I think we want it to on this campus, you know, and there's more student fee money, then, you know, maybe we can creep up in that way too.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're running the meeting.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how much are these positions actually working in the summer? Like,
not very much right now. There are some students working in the summer, and we have some ideas for some special projects that would happen in the summer. At OU, the summer is really all about forward-looking stuff. One of the things the summer staff does at OU is create a magazine that's sent to every incoming student, every incoming freshman and transfer student. That's a guide to what student life is like at OU. And we would love to do something like that for future KU students. And that would be a sort of project we have a summer staff work on.
okay. Yeah, I just mentioned that because that's an area that Student Senate is looking to save some money too. So I look at this and I'm thinking maybe we could take some of that summer money and put it in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we could, you know, and that's definitely a possibility. Is we could fund a fall and spring staff and not fund a summer staff and just do that the way we do now, where we reward the students working with some scholarship money.
Samantha. You talked earlier about some newspapers that are grant funded. Can you tell us a little bit about your plans to pursue grant funding?
You know, I don't know of any student newspapers that have pursued grant funding. But I imagine that's possible. It's just not something that I know student newspapers to be doing. And I know we have explored this a little bit. We certainly did at OU. And the message we got back from a lot of the funders of journalism in the nonprofit world is that they're reluctant to work with student newspapers because they feel like their money goes a lot further in professional environments. But it's something I would love to look at more, and we're continuing to look at.
Do you have any feedback from students or on campus?
Some, but not nearly as much as I would expect. And I can look at sometimes at the traffic numbers for the stories that we write, and a lot of the stories we write just don't get a lot of traffic on them. You know, stories that we think are good that should have been seen by more students, and that's a chicken and the egg problem for us. We don't have a strong audience right now sometimes. And so that translates into things not being seen by students, and then we don't have the feedback from students that we would want. And so we're hoping the app takes us further in the direction of being able to do more. And definitely in our future is some kind of student survey to set us a baseline for what do students like, what do students want.
So if you get a doubling of your fee, and you said that you're planning on maybe like downsizing the ad component, the business end of the UVK?
Well, the ag component downsizes itself. It's just, they're perpetually fewer dollars. it
At
seems
that
like.
point, would Student Senate essentially be your primary backer, like 90+% of your funding?
Yeah, conceivably, although but not entirely. I have
Yeah.
the
So, for the advisory board though, like all of our other programs have a specific advisory board for Senate, not just like a general board of stakeholders, but a specific Student Senate advisory board.
okay.
Is that what you mean by the board?
No, well, I mean, I would expect there to be student senate representation on that board, but I'm thinking of a more university community board. That's how most student newspapers are managed, actually, is that they're often managed by a board that includes both student government representatives and administration representatives and general student at-large representatives, and sometimes representatives from the journalism community.
That discussion was had last year, and last year the relations between the Kansas and the Senate were particularly acrimonious, and I think that prevents a freedom of expression problem. You have the institution that controls your funding also running your advisory board. Any other questions before I go back to Farzad?
You guys considered starting a premium subscription tier where most of your programming is free, and then you have some other sort of special.
Some student newspapers have experimented with that. There's just it doesn't go very far because you really can't expect students to pay that, and alumni's interest in the day-to-day workings of their alma mater's newspaper is limited.
Any additional questions? Well, that is all we have for you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I asked all the community members to stay by for just a minute or two while we clarify some scheduling stuff for tomorrow. We'll have information for you in terms of the decisions made. We're hoping to have a preliminary package. I'm Camden.
Camden, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. We'll have a preliminary package, hopefully by Friday. We're going to be seen by the Finance Council on Wednesday.
Yeah.
If that passes, fingers crossed, full Senate the following Wednesday, at which point we will have a result.
Right.
So we'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Hannah and Maddie, correct?
Sarah.
Sarah, dang it, I'm so sorry. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
One second, you bring my cross forward. No.
Matthew, Lincoln, thank you for coming in. You have fun. So have we all seen the proposed deliberation schedule for tomorrow, the alteration? So we'll have our regular. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna have our as scheduled student senate presentation from 10 to 10:45. Then we're going to break until noon, at which we'll be in the English room doing deliberations. Until 7 at the very latest, hopefully not that late, but you never know. And then should we not have a package agreed upon at that point, we will cross that bridge when we get there, hopefully never. Is that all okay with you?
Yes.
I've heard from most of you. Is there anyone that you can reach out to me privately, that has conflict or something that would impede your ability to participate in that? Okay, Madison? Yes, Turner and I are working on getting pizza ordered from Toppers. I know that's like not exactly gourmet. I haven't known that Steve policy. I'll tell you that story later. Okay, well, I think that's all we have for you. We made it through the vast majority of our hearing. We've got 45 minutes tomorrow.
Best for last,
And then-
baby.
Yeah, we'll get to sit in a room and figure something out. What's up, Marcus?
The review, survey center.
Yes.
Do we get?
Okay, so my next component is, I have all the survey information. We have like 1,300 responses, which is a lot. Relative to where we've been previously. It's almost 400 actual written responses. That is tonight's project for me. I would really appreciate any help going through and classifying grades in those responses. I'll put out some information in the Zoom link. I will be in the library tonight, probably late in the evening doing that. So if y'all want to come and commiserate and immerse yourselves in even more than you already have, you're welcome to do so. I will provide that information as I make that decision. As far as anything else, Casey, am I missing anything?
Quick question.
What's up, Mark?
Can I get those two historical percentages of student fee spending on? I have asked how much of those revenues are coming from the student? Two entities did not respond.
So the first thing I would say is look at the fee packets, do they the fee packet?
No,
Which entities are you curious about, Hara?
I don't know, I want like to, you mentioned you were the ETC and something.
Okay, so I can have that all for you guys tomorrow, you will look it up. Basically, what percentage of regression speed is. Oh, so like 20% of their revenue. No, of their revenue. Oh, it's an ETC is like, no, it's like 90%. They have a little bit of it down. I don't know what the other one was, but that's. Tomorrow, before deliberations, we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping before y'all get started on deliberation, just going over a few things. And then we'll be reading yourself on spreadsheets. Yeah, I will have a spreadsheet that we'll use to keep track of everything. I'll go over where we currently are with all the asks, and then I'll just keep track as we all are deliberating, kind of. Probably a little bit about going through like the easy things that can't change, don't want to change, so forth, and then save the hard ones.
I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time here, but I think this is important. The way we're going to do deliberations this year is we're going to sit down and agree on the number first. An increase, a decrease, flat fee. Just a quick, well, how many of you tentatively would be okay with the full $14 increase allocated by the board? That's my position. I'm going to raise my hand. Y'all, what are your thoughts?
I think we need to do the whole thing.
Is that a consensus?
I go.
So I have been advised by my bosses that we are not to go past the %, so that is the $14.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
all regions are not.
So as we go through these fees, I want to keep the big picture in mind, by starting with that point, okay, $14. And then think of the fees that we're allocating or reducing, not necessarily in context of that fee itself, but where we are, be conscious at all times of where we are in relation to that $14. And I spoke with Casey and Jen about this as well. I think we'll put the easy, none of the decisions that we're going to make tomorrow are easy. I want to make that abundantly clear. This is a tremendous responsibility, and I'm so grateful that you all stepped up for it, but I'm not going to lie and say that tomorrow is going to be fun, or that tomorrow is going to leave you anything but, a little bit heavy-hearted, because that's how this always goes, but this is why it's so important. We'll put the easier fees first, the ones that are less likely to be controversial, the ones that have asked for a flat ask, and then from there on, we'll go and we'll make the decisions as they present themselves. So I'm again so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you all. Please, I'm gonna hang out here for a couple minutes. If you want to talk to me, your questions, your concerns, I'm available. You can always email me, you can text me through the ending on GroupMe. I am here to support you in every way that I can. Thank you again so much for the time and energy that you put into this. I know that it is no small ask for unpaid volunteers such as yourself to make such momentous, challenging decisions. So that's my last thing, and I want you all to be aware of just how thankful I am for this opportunity to work with you. That's all I have. Go home, rest, take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thank you so much.
And we're in the English.
Yes, I think so.
Hypothetical scenario, if you say we please to what? What would that be?
It was not be, no, because but the bosses wanted 26.
Well, the realistic ask is what.
Yeah. Oh,
So I think that the figure that is.
it's like nearly double what we can do.
Okay.
We can't go over
But they cannot.
14. Because the Board of Regents will throw it back, they will say no. And the closest we are to 14.
But why is there anything?
Because they're in charge, like the Council Board of Regents decide everything about institutes, state institutes.
Traditionally, our way this works is that they delegate to us the allocation of the fee. We determine how the pie traditionally is divvied up, but they determine the size of the pie.
Yeah.
So they set a ceiling for the amount that, okay, we're not going to permit the student fee to go higher than this amount. Those are the bounds within which we have a lot of authority, certainly, don't get me wrong, I think that what we're doing here is very important. But we don't have the ultimate say in how much we're able to ask of students as opposed to the other time.
But we do know that that is the max.
The maximum amount we can ask for is $14.
3% maximum.
So if we still do 514, they'll say yes.
If
Yeah,
you do what?
514.
whatever the amount ends up being.
So it's $492.60 right now, so it's $14 on top.
$502 and 60 cents. No, 505. I'm so sorry. $506.60. The highest amount that we're able to get.
Yeah, we can't go above that.
How are you guys doing? Are we good with tomorrow?
Yes, but I wanted to add in the group me, Anthony's still in there. but-
Yeah, I kept it in the loop.
Oh, he's been-
I just
okay.
adjust membership.
And then Zachariah's proxy is not gonna be the same proxy, but I guess he's gonna reach out to you and tell you who he was picking instead,
Okay.
because, Nathaniel will not be. Just so you know. Okay, cool.
Yes, I just also want to make sure my proxy is coming from 3 to 5, and I
Yeah.
think the name was submitted, so.
Yes, and I'm just gonna,
Who are you sending?
It is, Andrew Collins. Sorry, the name was out, just like that.
give him my phone
Yes.
number in case you
Sure.
need.
Yeah.
Oh, he's providing
Yes.
that.
And,
Andrew Collins, oh, his phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I appreciate it.
As for the survey, what are you doing with it tonight?
Okay,
You're
so,
free, yeah.
yeah, I have, most of the questions, I'm just saying like base result over, but you
Okay.
received over 400 great responses.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
And so my master plan for this was to go through and categorize concerns raised in each question, and keep like a spreadsheet, like of the responses we received. 80% of the kids I got. Just gonna be really close to something.
Yeah.
It all had the Excel files, all of the example ones.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to read through.
Yeah.
30,000 words of responses is worth anything. We don't have any metrics about what exactly.
Right.
Responses, so I'm just gonna say black for hours and.
Okay, if you want to delegate anything to me, I can do stuff over Zoom.
Yeah,
With
okay.
you, if you want me to, like, if you want me to take half of those
Mhm.
responses and then you let me know.
I was gonna ask you to do that. Well, it's fun. I'm getting paid, so it's okay.
Yeah,
I'll do
I
it.
know, but still, but if you do need assistance or like I'll be available. You said you're gonna send out a Zoom link.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. We can if we need to.
Okay.
Or honestly, because the way it works with forms is you can just download an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
File. Like, hey, Jackson, can you please say,
So you only really need to sift through like the rivers.
The rivers, that was my
Yes,
question.
yeah, all the
So
other
everything
things,
else are analytic, yeah, okay.
That shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Ready to go now?
General question. Since student senate is the one that is doing all this process, is there any bias or like are we supposed to like prioritize the entities that are started by student senate in the process?
That's
It's up to, like,
It's a great
it's up
question.
to- it's like up to you. Everybody has different things.
That's a, yeah, it's a very moral or a normative question there. I think that. The way that Jen will advise us, and Casey. Will be to try to set aside your personal feelings as much as possible.
Yeah.
And acknowledge that what organizations you want to see funding are not necessarily the same organizations that need funding.
Like, for example, I don't use the rec center. It doesn't matter to me, but
Okay.
so many people on campus do. But it's important that we don't fuck up the rec center, you know? Same for buses. I drive to campus. I understand buses are important. I don't necessarily think they should get the $11 because we only have 14 to work with. But obviously they need funding in some way. So it's like. You have to do what's best for the greater good of the campus and not like your personal, what you want to find, you know?
Understood, yes.
Yeah. And once we have the data from the survey, that will help too. But some
Exactly.
people get like really hyped about something that they really love, and that's when it gets us. And we obviously have to advocate for stuff like graduate students like Hilltop, Emily Taylor Center, because the Emily Taylor Center, I have a graduate assistant that's a refugee from Afghanistan that they like are funding her ability to be here. So entities that have graduate assistants, we have to advocate for.
And if we need any clarification, we can call them back.
Yeah, we'll be.
Yeah, we can speak something, we usually do that transit every year.
Yeah, of course. Hey, Madison. Here's your.
He's not here right now, but you can talk to him.
Here's your webcam.
Sure.
Awesome.
I sent you an email.
Okay.
with The Willows presentation, like 5.5 minutes, but I can't upload it into the SharePoint, so it's 22,000. Compared to 14 that they usually get. Yeah. So, they're obviously not gonna get it, but.
Well, it's not